What a place, what a time, what a story. It's Friday morning here, and this is Tiananmen Square.
For decades, he was front and center at CBS News. All these years later, we thought it was time for a look back. Lee Cowan traveled to Texas for a conversation with Dan Rather.
And to each of you, courage.
It's been almost 20 years.
For the CBS Evening News, Dan Rather reporting.
Since Dan Rather
Good night.
signed off from the anchor desk here at CBS News. Of the so-called Big Three TV anchormen back in the day, watched by some 50 million people a night, Rather was there the longest, almost a quarter century.
The hurricane has been hitting full force.
The operative word tonight for the war against terror here in Afghanistan is more.
When he blinked,
I climbed up the Berlin Wall.
the CBS eye did too.
CBS News election.
In his 44 years with CBS, he held every post a network reporter could. Bureau chief, war correspondent,
10 years ago, there were no segregationist candidates for places in British Parliament.
foreign correspondent, White House correspondent.
Are you running for something? No, sir, Mr. President, are you?
But in 2006, a little more than a year after he stepped down from the anchor desk, Dan Rather left CBS itself.
Dan Rather was one of the great reporters of his time. Good luck, Dan. All the best.
Dan Rather, CBS News, became sort of all part of my name, a part of my identity.
And you have interviewed how many presidents?
I'd have to count everyone since Truman. Gosh.
This is the first time he's appeared on this network since.
Without apology or explanation, I miss CBS. I've missed it since the day I left there.
Even at 92, how and why he left still stings.
In the heart of every reporter worthy of the name, Lee, there's a message that news, real news, is what somebody somewhere, particularly somebody in power, doesn't want you to know. That's news.
And that's what got him into trouble.
NBC News in depth tonight, the black eye at CBS News. Today, CBS News anchor Dan Rather and the news division.
In 2004, Rather filed a report for 60 Minutes 2 that questioned George W. Bush's service record in the Texas Air National Guard.
Tonight, we have new documents and new information on the president's military service.
But the documents on which Rather and his producer based their reporting could not be later authenticated.
It was a mistake. CBS News deeply regrets it. Also, I want to say personally and directly, I'm sorry.
Was that the lowest point for you, you think?
Of course it was the lowest point. I gave CBS News everything I had. They had smarter, better, more talented people, but they didn't have anybody who worked any harder than I did.
CBS's Lee Cowan tells us one firehouse within sight of Ground Zero has had its heart cut out.
I'd only been at CBS a few years by then, during which Dan Rather had kindly and unexpectedly taken me under his wing. He made me feel welcome.
You told me once that it's not the question, but it's the follow-up. That's
yes.
What
well, that's
often
true.
is more important.
I hope you'll not be following up today.
Minus the suspenders and his cigars, Rather remains just as I remember him, an intently curious,
I'll ring you back in about 10. Thanks.
thoughtful, well-read skeptic who wants nothing more than to wear out his shoe leather chasing the next headline.
What made you want to be a reporter in the first place?
You know, Lee, I've never quite known the answer to that question. All I know is it's the only thing I ever wanted to be was a reporter. And I get up every morning, and as soon as my feet hit the ground, I say, where's the story?
You still do that, huh?
I do.
And it doesn't matter how big or small the audience is?
No.
Good evening from Dharamsala, India. Port-au-Prince, Haiti. Welcome to Alaska.
After CBS, Rather continued to report from all over the world for several news broadcasts of his own.
We come to you tonight from the line between Israel and the occupied West Bank.
He wrote books.
And thank you so much.
Thank you so
That's
much.
exactly why I wanted to talk to you tonight.
Thank you.
Became a sought-after voice on presidential politics and found a new, younger audience on social media.
You either get engaged, and you get engaged on the new terms, or you're out of the game. I wanted to stay in the game.
How would you rate where we are today in journalism?
Let the record show that I paused. The people who are practicing journalism today are so much better than those of us who came up at another time. They're better educated. They're more knowledgeable about the world. They want to do the right thing. They're doing the best they can.
Take your hands off of me. Unless you intend to arrest me, don't push me, please.
In his time, he knew his best wasn't to try to be his predecessor, Walter Cronkite. Instead, he tried to be the best Dan Rather he could be,
Well, Walter, as you can see,
which came with price tags. Some professional, many of them personal.
We had the assassination on Friday, the interrogation of the assassin on Saturday.
In 1963, while the nation mourned the assassination of John F. Kennedy in Dallas, Rather didn't have that luxury.
I mean, you didn't have any time to grieve yourself.
I didn't take time to grieve because I said to myself, it's my professional responsibility. And I remember calling my wife, Jean, who was in Houston at the time of the assassination. But she had cautioned me, Dan, sooner or later, you have to make room for your own emotions.
And I love my church. That's why I'm trying to show my church where they are in grave error if they accept integration.
Rather also led CBS's coverage of the civil rights movement. Those were the days he thought might define him as a reporter. But then came Vietnam.
No soldier worthy of the name will leave even a dead comrade.
You know, there's a great misunderstanding of what soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen are afraid of in war. They are afraid of dying, of course they are. But that's not what they're most afraid of. Fighting men and women are most afraid of letting down the guy to their left or the woman to their right. Race was rarely even thought of. The saying among the troops was, same mud, same blood. And that's the way it was handled.
Being a hard-charging reporter doesn't mean being a heartless one. After 9/11, Rather's raw emotion reflected what we were all feeling.
Thine alabaster cities gleam, undimmed by human tears. We can never sing that song again.
That was all long ago. These days, you'll find him under the shade of a stately old oak, not far from his home in Austin, Texas.
Well, it's called the treaty tree, Lee.
It's outlasted Spanish conquests, the Civil War, even urban sprawl. And in its tangled branches, Dan Rather sees himself.
It couldn't survive for these 600 years without having very deep roots.
It's a lot comparable to you. It's endurance, strength, and has been in Texas for a long time.
Yeah, I wish that were true.
He spent his career trying to put the world in context for others, penning the first draft of history in his reporter's notebook. Dan Rather knows more than anyone that the final draft, though, is up to others. And that's how it should be.
The closest you can do about legacy is not think about your work, think about what you did as a person. Those important questions of who am I? Why am I here? What can I contribute? Those are the important questions, not how well one did or didn't do as anchor and managing editor of the CBS Evening News.